Ashley, and today I'm going to do another sketchbook tour. So I'm going to be doing a sketchbook tour of this Paul Rubens sketchbook that I got, and I completed this sketchbook from October of 2023 to January of 2024. So I am behind on getting these sketchbook tours kind of filmed and released, but I wanted to still put them out there just to demonstrate kind of the progress in my sketchbook practice. This one took about 3 months to complete. And for this one, I did a lot of kind of practice of things that I wanted or was going to be painting. So this was definitely like a quick sketch of the idea that then I later turned into like larger scale paintings. And that was kind of what I used this sketchbook for. So we'll dive in and see those paintings. So this is a Paul Rubens sketchbook. I think it must be hot press. It was very smooth paper. I did not like the paper in this sketchbook. I know a lot of people like the Paul Rubens sketchbooks. It wasn't for me. And so that's kind of something to note, is just because somebody else likes something doesn't mean you're gonna like it, but sometimes you have to try things and figure out what works best for you. So like this Paul Rubens one I didn't love, whereas my last sketchbook, which was this Tumu Arta sketchbook, so it was 25% cotton cold pressed, and I liked this paper a lot better than I like the Paul Rubens one, but that's just personal preference. It's not that this is bad, it's a great sketchbook. It's just the paper wasn't for me. So we're gonna dive in. Overall, I will kind of forewarn you, there's not much that I really liked in this sketchbook. So it's gonna be a little bit more of a critical sketchbook tour. So if you don't like people being critical of themselves, maybe watch one of my other sketchbook tours, not this one. So first page, I just wanted to work a little bit on my writing. Not awesome. I'm not good at calligraphy. And then I just did some loose florals, and I did put my phone number in there, so we'll black that out. But lots of people write their kind of contact details in case they lose their sketchbook, so I decided to do that. And that's just a nice, messy, quick page. These pages I actually did like. This one not as much, but I like the clouds and the sky in this page and the dry brushing on the edges. I always want to do like vignette style paintings, and then when I actually go to do it on a large scale, I just forget to leave white space around the corners or the edges, so I need to work on that more. But you know, this was fun, super quick, and I just added this little impression of the sailboat, so I lifted some paint there and just added that impression there. And then the second one I did kind of similar, but I added the beach. This one I love the sky on. This, I just kind of put in some paint wet on wet and then just let it go. That's the thing with this, is I need to remember not to manipulate it and just let the watercolor do its thing. So having this slightly tilted and adding that water, or adding the color to a wet page, creates these bleeds and this kind of run down effect that makes it look like a stormy sky. And then I like the water, I like the white space of this, and then the little beach. This was just a super simple, super quick little painting of a seascape. Nothing fancy, but I really do like that one. So if you're looking for something that you can be successful at fairly easily, doing just a flat seascape or landscape like this, where there's just a straight horizon line, it's kind of land, sky, is a nice simple way to create something that typically is going to work out fairly well. And then we have one that didn't work out well. So I was playing with purples and oranges here with contrasting colors, and then going from light to dark. And this is just a mess, but it is, I mean, it's okay, I guess. It's abstract. Getting this river coming back, the perspective of this is wonky, but getting the reflection of the sky in there, it's kind of muddy in some spots. You know, some layering. Not great. But the color combination is interesting for a landscape. Again, working on some lettering here, and then played with the little vine look on the edges. This was obviously fall, so it was around Thanksgiving. here in the United States at least. And I did some pumpkins and a mum just to get that fall vibe. They're not great. Again, the layering is not good. Yeah, don't love it, but it is, you know, a messy little impression of pumpkins and a mum. Messy fall tree. This was just impatience. This had nothing to do with the paper. Instead of like layering, I tried to do wet on wet tree. I guess it's not really impatience. That's not the right word. Sometimes I am impatient. This is more playing with the technique, seeing what can happen, seeing how muddy it gets doing things certain ways. So this just turned super muddy doing all the wet on wet with the oranges and the greens and the yellows, and it didn't work. So now I know that, right? And then dry brushing on this paper. Again, this paper's super smooth, so the dry brushing kind of, to me, it's not the effect I like when I use dry brushing, but it did work, you know. There is dry brush texture there, even though the paper's not very textured, but not my favorite. These were some little like seed pods from plants. I'm not sure if I saw a picture of these online. I really don't think so. I think I had some of these like in person and I was just sketching based on that. I like the movement of it. These ones aren't too bad, getting some of the linear textures in on them and this dark shadow, but you know, just quick sketches of them. Not the most beautiful, but fun practice. Here I just did a pumpkin field, and so I didn't sketch out beforehand. I just did the sky, some trees in the background, added a little bit of darker color for some trunks and branches, and then when I added the field, the transition between it was weird, so I added this fence and some blobs of pumpkin in the field, going from lighter to like darker in the foreground, more detailed. Just a quick little sketch. This, again, none of these are masterpieces. But this one was not too bad. This one was fun. This one, I had drawn breast cancer ribbon on this page, which you'll see more of those coming up because there was like a little challenge for doing a breast cancer ribbon. And I didn't like the shape, and then I just painted over it. So I was working on kind of a color palette here with darker and lighter values, and then kind of a little composition of florals with that. This one I tried to lift some veins instead of doing darker veins, because a lot of times leaves actually have lighter veins than the leaf. So I tried to lift out. I would need a smaller brush for that if I'm working on this small of a scale, but it did work. So that was something that I kind of liked playing with. So this one I also did the ribbon and then painted over it because the ribbon didn't turn out good. And so this was just trying to do really loose roses and doing kind of that typical watercolor loose rose style where you do the little C curves and playing with that and then getting some leaves in. I like the idea of the pinkish red on the leaves because rose leaves have that. They have that red veins in them. So I like that idea. Execution, not the best. I like the colors of these roses with the yellow and the peach. Again, execution, maybe not the best. This one's my favorite. This one just looks super flat and wonky, but this one I like. The rest, meh. And these buds are just way too dark. I don't know what I was doing, but just a sketch practicing those florals. And here's where I finally actually liked my breast cancer ribbon. And so I got the drawing in and I liked this little extra here, extra little ribbon coming off. I liked the shading of this one, and then the writing, the script calligraphy, I was actually fairly happy with. I'm not good at calligraphy, so I was pretty happy with how the lettering turned out here. So that, I don't know, I haven't been through the whole book yet, but this might be my most successful painting in this sketchbook. And I like this washiness over here with the splatters. These are just working through some different wildflowers from our area, trying to figure out kind of techniques that might work the best and the shapes of the flowers, and some, like here I was working out more the colors. Did I like more the purple or the lighter pinks? So this was just playing with these because I was planning a painting and did complete the painting with Texas wildflowers along the bottom in kind of rainbow colors. So I was figuring out which flower of each color I wanted and practicing the shapes. So that was successful in the sense of it prepared me to do that painting, which I'll link that painting down in the description. It is my teacher's gift painting. So I did Texas wildflowers because I'm in Texas. And then I worked on writing. Also later in this, you'll see where I worked on calligraphy again. And so I wrote on that a little quote about teachers. So I'll link that in the description. This was working out different composition ideas for a commission that I did for actually my neighbor. She wanted blue and gold florals in her dining room. So I was working out different ideas that then I could like refine and talk to her about what she liked the best. So first I started like, well, maybe I want a real dark background. I do actually like this. I like the dark background with the yellow flowers. And I was really happy with actually the yellow flowers, the shading on them, because that I struggle with. I'm not great at yellow, and I find it hard to get shading without making it look muddy. So I was happy with these ones. I actually kind of liked the little white spaces around between the flowers and the background. But it was just too dark for what she was looking for. But that was kind of a fun little drawing painting, and I really do like that one. This one just was too, I don't know, structured, too layered. I didn't like the little pyramid. It looks like cheerleaders standing on top of each other, you know, doing the pyramid. It didn't work for a floral composition. But just working through getting some of the colors and how I wanted it. And then this is a much looser one. This one had a lot more greenery, so I was just kind of playing with that, different shapes of flowers also. And then kept playing with it here. So this one was more focused on the blues on these ones, and then this one was more focused on the yellows. And then I told you I worked on the writing later, so this was me practicing my letters with calligraphy, trying to figure out what shape of W I wanted, trying to work on, you know, all of my letters. And so there's some, you can see I even circled some, so I was like, yes, that W, this T, this L. So I circled what I liked the best. Here I did teach, but I didn't like the T, so I crossed it out, but I like the rest of it. So this is just trying to figure out how to write, which, you know, I am an adult, I should know how to write, but calligraphy is so hard. You know, people who are good at calligraphy, I very much respect you. So this was my final kind of all of the text put together, and I used that then to, when I was doing the actual painting. This, I was practicing a little bit more because this kind of got messed up, so I was practicing more, and then I just painted over it. I don't know why, they must not have been very good, so I just kind of scratched them out with paint. More pumpkins, so again this was fall, and so this was doing the whole page blue first as like an underpainting, but not like a detailed underpainting of shadows or anything. I just did the whole page blue as a contrasting color to the orange, just to get a more muted orange on the pumpkin. And it's kind of muddy, it's like textured weird. Again, that's the paper. I don't like the texture that I got with this, but I do kind of like the color, and I actually like this leaf quite a bit, this giant leaf, and I like the color of the leaf too with the blue undertones. So this was kind of fun. And then I did a contrasting painting where I didn't do the blue under, just to show the difference of that like vividness in the orange. So just playing with pumpkins and the
twirly vines. So again, not masterpieces, but those were fun to paint. This was just a little winter scene with a super messy fox and some trees. So I did wet on wet for the background. I do kind of like this splotchy looking hill in the background. It looks like snow with trees poking up. This is white gouache on top of this tree. So I did not preserve white space or anything like that. Just added white gouache on top, threw in that fox. Kind of a fun little painting. Not great, but it was fun to paint. This was a challenge, like prompts challenge. I don't know where I did the rest of them or if I did the rest of them, but I did do stamp. So this was stamp, and I found a picture of this floral stamp that I liked. And this was fun. I liked the shading and the kind of ripply texture on the edge of the stamp. This was actually really fun to do. And if you're wanting to paint like miniature small things, paint stamps. Man, they're quick and they're fun, and you don't have to think too much about it, and the shading's fun. This is just an ink sketch. I should have done more ink in this because I didn't love the texture of the paper for watercolor, so I really should have drawn more on it, but I didn't. But this is just my daughter. Her face turned out real wonky, and so did her hair. I don't love her hair. But this is my daughter with at like a fall festival. This lady was on stilts and she was a scarecrow. I really like how she turned out. I think that looks really cool with her hat. Her face is really kind of geometric and fun. She had face paint on. And then I like the giant sunflower. So this one was fun. My daughter, again, didn't turn out the best, but I do like that drawing. Quick watercolor sketch, no pencil or ink or anything on this one. The paper here looks like it got damaged. I don't know how, but this is a little skateboard swing that we have in our front yard. So I just did a painting of my daughter swinging on the skateboard swing. It's very messy. We'll leave it at that. These were working through some ideas. I did that whole series of monochromatic paintings on, they're all on my channel, so you can just look. I even have a playlist for them for all of the monochromatic paintings. But this was working through some different ideas for it. So this was looking up through the trees to like a bright sky. So I tried to lift out the bright after doing all the dabs. It did not work on this paper. It's kind of a cool concept, but I didn't like how it was turning out. And I didn't end up doing this because I just couldn't quite figure out how to make it look how I pictured it looking. So I didn't end up doing that for my final paintings, but it is a cool idea, a different perspective. I'm dragging over a forest, again, just playing with the shapes and the composition, making sure that I liked it. This one I kind of lifted out a little figure down here. I didn't put a figure in the final painting, but I kind of like it. It looks like he's like sticking his arms out and looking up at the dragon like, whoa, whoa, what's going on here? So that's kind of funny. I didn't do that in the final painting though. I don't even remember doing that. And then we have this. I love the final painting of this. This is just a super quick sketch of it, working on like how I wanted the layers and the darks of the tree. My final version of this is one of my favorite paintings that I've done. So this was just working out that. And then this one is working out composition also with the sun and a river. So that one I turned into a final painting. Again, these are just quick studies that were prepping me for the final paintings. This one I really liked the movement that I got in the grass here, going from these diagonal strokes to the upward diagonal in the opposite direction strokes. So this was a fun painting to do actually in this sketchbook and the final version as well. And here's another monochromatic painting with the lake. So this one, I actually like this one. These two are probably like my favorite pages in this sketchbook. These ones actually were more successful. You can tell I'm getting to the end of the sketchbook, so maybe I was finally actually figuring out the paper a little bit more. So, I mean, like through here on the water, this is kind of cool with the smooth paper, how the darker colors show layered on top of the others. It's not like blended nicely, it's layered, which is a style, and I do actually like it on this painting. Then we have another of the giant sequoias. So this one is an ink and wash, and I did some cross hatching for some shadows. It's not my favorite. I don't think that it gets the impression of how big these trees really are as well. The trees I feel like should have been much more like imposing in terms of these trunks. They should have been a lot thicker and just more, I don't know. But I do like the foliage up here, the squiggles that I did, and then the hatching for some of the dark areas. That was kind of fun. And this one is just, I don't know, wild color landscape. It's kind of fun how this feathered up and didn't get muddy, so that's kind of cool how I was able to do that. But that just comes again from putting the paint on the paper and then not touching it. And I have to remind myself not to do that, not to mess with it after I put it on, and let the watercolor do the work, because it turns out looking way cooler than if I try to manipulate it. Now the rest of this, meh, but I do like that part right there. And then we have another monochromatic painting here. This one kind of looks harsh and overworked, like too many brush strokes through here, but again, I turned this into a final painting later. And I did pull out one of the paintings here that was a monochromatic painting because we were doing like a white elephant, and I was like, oh, well, that makes a good white elephant gift. So I did pull one out, but it was one of the monochromatic paintings. That was a cool thing about this sketchbook, that if you wanted to be able to pull out the pages and, you know, display them or just throw them away. Some people want to do that. They don't want things in their sketchbook that they don't like. These are perforated, so that's kind of a cool feature. This was trying to get some clouds. Clouds are hard. Clouds on this paper were maybe even harder. I don't like the texture here. I don't know, it's not great, but the colors are pretty. And that was it. So this was my not most favorite sketchbook ever that I've done, but I really hope you enjoyed that sketchbook tour, and if you did, give the video a like, because that's helpful for the channel. And you can check out, I have other sketchbook tours, and then I also have lots of tutorials and stuff on my channel, so check it out. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks for watching.